10 legendary JDM cars from the 1980s that got banned in the US today, we're exposing the true JDM heroes, the engineering masterpieces of the 1980s that were deemed too fast, too advanced, and too illegal for American roads. These are the cars that defined a generation of Japanese horsepower, only to be locked behind the notorious 25-year import rule. They're legendary precisely because the US government said, absolutely not. You won't believe which one of these cars was only produced to destroy Australian racing, or which one runs on a screaming rotary engine. Let's dive into 10 forbidden JDM monsters. 10. Suzuki Alto Works RSR. Kicking off our list is the tiniest troublemaker, the Suzuki Alto Works RSR. Most banned cars are monsters, but this one is a micro machine. The RSR belonged to the K-car class, meaning it was designed to fit ridiculously small dimensions for tax breaks in Japan. Despite its toy-like appearance, it was pure, concentrated performance in a tiny aluminum can. This car was a result of Japan's internal horsepower war in the 80s, where engineers found clever ways to cheat the displacement limits. The Alto Works was built on the philosophy of maximum engineering, minimum size. The exterior featured a functional hood scoop and aggressive aero kits, but it was still small enough to fit inside the bed of most American pickup trucks, which is part of why it was banned. It simply didn't fit the US safety standards for size and was deemed fundamentally unsafe against larger American vehicles. Its survival today is a testament to its mechanical quality, as many were driven to the absolute limit every single day by enthusiastic owners who loved its chaotic performance. The thrill of driving the RSR came from wrestling with a tiny machine that felt like it had rabies, not from serene high-speed cruising. The engine was a high-tech 547 cubic centimeters turbocharged inline three-cylinder, later 657 cubic centimeters, known as the F5B or F6A. Due to strict K regulations, the output was capped, officially producing 64 horsepower and around 63 pound-feet of torque. The true miracle was the all-wheel drive AWD layout combined with a manual transmission, unheard of in a car this small, because of its feather-light curb weight of around 610 kilograms in the AWD grip. The steel monocoque body could launch with shocking ferocity and was utterly dominant on tight, twisty roads. The engine was famously over-engineered, allowing tuners to easily push the turbo boost far past the factory limit, turning it into a genuine 100-plus horsepower pocket rocket. The RSR proved that the 80s JDM scene wasn't just about big displacement. Sometimes the weirdest, smallest cars packed the biggest punches. From a tiny AWD terror, let's look at the mid-engine lightweight that Toyota dared to supercharge. 9. Toyota MR2 Supercharged AW11. Next up is the car that proved Toyota could build a true exotic, the first-generation MR2 AW11, specifically the supercharged version. The MR2 was already a shock when it launched, a mid-engine, rear-wheel drive machine that looked like a mini Ferrari, built by the company known for the Camry. But when they strapped on a supercharger, it went from a fun sports car to a genuine, high-strung monster. Unlike a turbo, the Roots-type supercharger delivered instant, continuous power, turning the already snappy chassis into a go-kart with a hair trigger. The US received the naturally aspirated version, but the supercharged model was the forbidden fruit, locked away in the JDM market because of its higher performance and Toyota's cautious approach to exporting the aggressive setup. This car perfectly captured the sharp, geometric styling of the 80s, complete with mandatory pop-up headlights and a T-bar roof option. Its low stance and razor-sharp handling meant it was easily mistaken for something much more expensive, making it the perfect sleeper sports car. The high compression and specific fuel requirements of the supercharged engine also presented too many emissions and certification hurdles for Toyota to clear for the US market, securing its spot on the banned list. The power came from the famous 4A GZE inline four-cylinder engine, displacing 1.6 liters. Thanks to the Roots-type supercharger and air-to-air intercooler, it delivered a punchy 145 horsepower and 140 lb-ft of torque, a huge jump over the standard model. The entire engine was forged and reinforced to handle the pressure. The MR2 was extremely light, with a curb weight of around 1,090 kilograms for the standard JDM supercharged model. The steel chassis and mid-engine layout gave it exceptional balance, making it capable of 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.5 seconds. A time that humbled Porsches of the era. The only hint that this wasn't a standard MR2 was the barely noticeable supercharged badging and the subtle whine of the blower under the engine cover louvers, a sound that signaled doom for anyone who lined stand up against it. That mid-engine terror was nimble, but the next car was a luxury coupe that hid its raw twin-turbo power under a layer of extreme digital tech. 8. Toyota Soarer GT Limited Z20. If the Supra was Toyota's public sports car, the Toyota Soarer Z20 was its secret, high-tech luxury weapon. Launched in 1986, the Z20 was designed to be a grand tourer that was absolutely dripping in 80s digital excess, but with performance to match. It looked like a typical luxury coupe, clean, boxy, and designed for comfortable highway cruising. But inside and under the hood, it was decades ahead of its time, featuring digital instrument clusters, electronically controlled air suspension, and even an early version of a touch-screen navigation system that was completely unusable outside of Japan. This complexity was one of the many reasons the US never got the best version. Certifying all that exotic tech in the specific engine setup was simply too expensive and complicated for Toyota's new Lexus division to manage without diluting their new luxury brand's image. The Z20 was the car that Toyota built to prove they could out-engineer anyone, but the bureaucratic effort required to bring it stateside was seen as too great for a niche coupe. The flagship model was the 3 GT Limited, powered by the legendary 7M GTE turbocharged inline six-cylinder engine, displacing 3 liters. This smooth-running heavy-duty engine delivered a solid 230 horsepower and a massive 254 pound-feet of torque. The Z20 was a heavy coupe, especially when equipped with the optional air suspension. Despite the weight, the torque allowed it to sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in a conservative 6.8 seconds. But its real trick was relentless pull at high speeds, making it an Autobahn missile disguised as a comfortable cruiser. It was banned not because it was flawed, but because it was too smart, too complicated, and too advanced for its own good. A beautiful piece of forbidden digital history. We've seen digital luxury. Now let's look at the car that started the revolution, the legendary 4-door GT-R ancestor. 7. Nissan Skyline GTS-R R31. This is where the Godzilla legend truly began, the Nissan Skyline GTS-R based on the R31 chassis. Most people remember the R32, but the R31 GTS-R was the car built solely to dominate Group A touring car racing. To the average American buyer, it looked like a conservative, boxy sedan or coupe, the epitome of 80s straight-edge design. It was easily mistaken for a basic family car sold in Australia or Japan. But the GTS-R was homologated for racing, meaning Nissan stripped out weight and crammed it with exotic, high-performance parts, creating a vehicle entirely unsuitable for the casual US market. It was too focused, too aggressive, and too rare to ever be certified. This was Nissan's raw answer to the European dominance in racing, resulting in a car that was essentially a thinly veiled race machine that the company never intended for mass export, thus sealing its fate under the 25-year rule. The engine was the famous RB20DET-R turbocharged inline six-cylinder, displacing 2 liters. The GTS-R featured a massive Garrett TO4E turbocharger and a specialized stainless steel exhaust manifold, producing a factory-rated 210 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. However, these figures were massively underrated to avoid Japanese tax penalties. The GTS-R was built for lightweight, sporting use, achieving a curb weight of just 1,360 kilograms for the steel monocoque coupe body. This low weight and high power density meant it was blisteringly fast and a true rival for contemporary Porsches. Only 823 units were ever built, making it an instant collectible and ensuring its exclusion from the US was permanent until the 25-year rule passed. The GTS-R wasn't just a car, it was a promise of the legendary power that Nissan would unleash in the 90s, built solely to dominate motorsports. We've seen the start of the Skyline era, but what about the wedge-shaped warrior that tried to take on Porsche with pure turbo boost? We've uncovered 4 JDM legends so far, and the list is only getting hotter. If you're enjoying this deep dive into forbidden horsepower, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel right now. You don't want to miss the ultimate rotary, the Turbo Z, and the final boss. 6. Mitsubishi Starion GSR-VR. The Mitsubishi Starion was the company's ambitious attempt to build a true Japanese rival to the Porsche 944, and the final GSR-VR model was the ultimate statement of intent. It looks like a classic 80s wedge, all sharp edges, pop-up headlights, and wide fender flare that look like they were bolted on by a rally team. While the US got the standard 2.6-liter engine, Japan held back the truly exotic, high-revving version with multi-valve technology and the specific homologation features. The GSR-VR was a homologation special built to satisfy Group A racing rules, hence the enormous, aggressive wide-body look that made it an instant head-turner. The Starion was one of the most mechanically sophisticated cars of its time, featuring independent suspension and a limited slip differential. However, its complex turbo setup and specific emissions controls for the Japanese market meant that certifying the full-spec GSR-VR for America's stringent rules was always going to be an expensive failure, cementing its banishment and ensuring only its tamer sibling, the Chrysler Conquest, made it to U.S. shores. The Japanese monster was powered by the G63B SOHC 2-liter engine, which in its final guise was updated with a sophisticated dash, dual-action superhead, 12-valve design and turbocharging. The GSR-VR version specifically utilized the larger 2.6-liter Astron engine to maximize low-end torque while still offering high-performance features. This engine produced a peak of 175 horsepower and 231 pound-feet of torque. The massive wide-body design made the car heavier, giving it a curb weight of around 1,270 kilograms. But the wider track and rear-wheel drive steel chassis provided phenomenal grip. This allowed the GSR-VR to achieve 0 to 60 in the 7-second range. But its true speed was measured in its high top end and aggressive cornering ability, which was track-tuned by the factory. It was a car that looked, sounded, and drove like a true sports car, built by Mitsubishi when they were at their most daring and competitive peak. And its complexity was its downfall in the eyes of regulators. That was the wedge. Now let's talk about the unique monster that broke all the rules of physics and engine design, the Rotary King. 5. Mazda Savanna RX-7 Turbo 2 FC3S. The second-generation Mazda Savanna RX-7 FC3S was a phenomenal sports car worldwide, but the specific Turbo 2 iteration available only in Japan was the purest, most undiluted expression of Mazda's rotary genius. While the US got a slightly neutered version, the JDM model featured unique chassis bracing, higher output engines, and specific performance trim, built to satisfy the aggressive Japanese domestic market. The FC looks softer than the previous generation, borrowing heavily from the Porsche 928's styling, positioning it as a sleek, high-end sport tourer. This subtle evolution was its perfect camouflage. The whole car was built around Mazda's desire to prove the rotary engine was not just a quirky experiment, but a legitimate high-performance power plant capable of rivaling the best piston engines from around the globe. The simple fact that it ran a rotary engine, a machine that revs so high and makes such a unique noise, made it difficult for U.S. regulators and consumers to understand, leading to tighter restrictions on the full-spec models due to emissions and longevity concerns. At its heart was the compact and light 13BT 2-rotor Wankel engine, displacing 1.3 liters, equivalent to a 2.6L piston engine. The Turbo 2 used a sophisticated twin-scroll turbocharger designed to eliminate low-end lag, producing a healthy 205 horsepower and 196 pound-feet of torque in later Series 5 models, 1989 plus. This high power density allowed the 1,300 kilogram steel-bodied coupe to achieve 0 to 60 miles per hour times in the 6.2-second range, with relentless acceleration thanks to the rotary's unique power band. The FC3S chassis featured Mazda's Advanced Dynamic Tracking Suspension System, DTS-S, which provided passive rear steering for incredible cornering stability. The JDM version was essentially a lightweight, high-revving weapon, often including rare factory options like the Infiniti Performance Package, making it an exotic piece of forbidden engineering. Its very existence was a challenge to the established order, and for that, it was banned. That was the smooth rotary. Now for a boxy sedan that hit a terrifying secret engine and all the luxury a street racer could ask for. 4. Toyota Cresta Twin Turbo JZX-81. The Toyota Cresta defined the JDM sleeper sedan. In its most basic form, the Cresta was a corporate chauffeur's car, loaded with velour and chrome, designed to be quiet and comfortable. But the JZX-81 chassis offered the legendary GT twin-turbo trim, turning a boring bank manager's car into a rear-wheel drive highway missile. To the untrained eye, it was just another upright, boxy Toyota sedan, which is precisely why street racers and drifters loved it. It was the ultimate undercover car, capable of leaving actual sports cars wondering what just happened. The U.S. market never saw the Cresta in any form because Toyota was busy launching the conservative Lexus LS, and the idea of of certifying a high-horsepower, potentially rowdy twin-turbo Toyota sedan simply didn't fit the luxury brand narrative. The car's dual nature, luxury on the outside, lunatic on the inside, made it a favorite among those who knew, but a nightmare for regulators trying to categorize it under existing import rules, leading to its effective banishment. The deception lay under the hood. The legendary 1G GTE twin-turbo inline six-cylinder engine, displacing 2 liters. This smooth, turbine-like engine produced 210 horsepower and 191 pound-feet of torque. While these numbers are strong, the chassis was built for more, and the engine was famously tunable, easily reaching 300-plus horsepower. The Cresta was a heavy luxury sedan with a curb weight of around 1,390 kilograms for the GT twin-turbo model, built on a robust steel chassis with 4-wheel independent suspension. This weight was countered by the incredible traction provided by the rear-wheel drive platform and the R154 manual transmission option. It was a victim of its own success in its subtle styling. Too fast for American regulators, and too much of a sleeper for U.S. buyers who preferred flashier muscle. It remains one of the greatest undercover performance cars Japan ever built. That was the 4-door sleeper. Now let's look at Nissan's entry into the high-end coupe market, which hid its most powerful engine from the world. 3. Nissan Fairlady Z 300ZR Z31. The Nissan Fairlady Z Z31, sold as the 300ZX in the US, was a popular sports coupe around the world. But the true JDM performance hero was the 300ZR, and even more so, the incredibly rare version fitted with the legendary RB engine. This car looked like a standard Z31, all 80s angles, digital dashboards, and T-tops. It was sleek, comfortable, and fast. But the specific JDM models were built with a completely different philosophy than the VG V6 cars sold stateside. This was Nissan going all in on performance engineering. The Z31's aerodynamic design, which boasted a low drag coefficient of 0.30, made it a high-speed favorite. The US received the V6, but the legendary power plant Nissan produced for the domestic market was the true reason this Z model is on our banned list. It was a turbo straight 6 designed for much higher performance potential that Nissan never bothered to federally certify. The Forbidden Heart was the RB20 DET turbocharged inline 6-cylinder engine, displacing 2 liters, an engine derived from the Skyline GTR's lineage. This straight 6 produced 180 horsepower and 188 pound-feet of torque. Figures that rivaled the US market V6 turbo, but with a much higher ceiling for tuning and a straight 6 howl the V6 could never match. The Z31 had a curb weight of approximately 1,300 kilograms, making it lighter than many of its rivals. The steel chassis and improved suspension made it a capable handler. The 300ZR featured advanced options like 3-way electronically adjustable shock absorbers, which were too complex and expensive to certify for mass U.S. consumption. This car was a technological marvel, too sharp and too focused for the American import rules of the time. The 300ZR featured advanced options like 3-way electronically adjustable shock absorbers. We've seen the stealthiest seat. Now for the ultimate rotary masterpiece that was banned because it simply revved too high. 2. Mazda RX-7 GTX FC3S. This car is the purest expression of Mazda's engineering brilliance, and the single reason American regulators feared the Wankel engine. The Mazda RX-7 GTX FC3S was the top-spec JDM model, a high-revving monster that was stripped of the non-turbo weight but kept all the turbo-grade chassis hardware. While the base FC was sold in the US, the GTX was locked in Japan, a light, precise machine engineered purely for the winding Japanese mountain passes. Its exterior maintained the conservative, Porsche-inspired styling, complete with pop-up headlights, offering zero visual warning about the mechanical terror lurking within. The problem wasn't power, it was the engine itself. The Wankel rotary was notoriously difficult to certify for US emissions and fuel economy standards, especially the high-output Japanese versions, which were built for high-octane abuse. The GTX specifically carried chassis and brake upgrades not seen on lesser models, making it the ultimate track day weapon that America missed out on. The engine was the potent 13B 2-rotor Wankel, displacing 1.3 liters. Unlike the naturally aspirated US base model, the GTX featured the full twin-scroll turbocharger setup, pushing power to 205 horsepower and 196 pound-feet of torque. The GTX was built for ultimate performance purity, achieving an incredibly low curb weight of just 1,250 kilograms for the steel monocoque coupe body. This featherweight design, combined with Mazda's dynamic tracking suspension system, DTSS, allowed the GTX to handle with astonishing precision and hit 60 just over 6 seconds. This car was banned not for its looks, but for its revolutionary, high-revving rotary engine that defied convention and scared regulators with its aggressive emissions profile. It was too pure, too exotic, and too dangerous for the average American highway, and that's why we still want it. You've seen the rotary. Now for our number one choice, the ultimate JDM legend that caused an international crisis and was banned for being too successful. 1. Nissan Skyline GTR R32. And finally, we have the undisputed champion of the forbidden list, the car that earned the nickname Godzilla for destroying everything in its path, the Nissan Skyline GTR R32. This car wasn't just banned, its performance was so illegal that it triggered the 25-year import rule debate for a generation of enthusiasts. To the US market, it looked like a sporty but boxy Nissan sedan, an evolved version of the R31. But the GTR badge meant it was a completely different animal, a computer-controlled, twin-turbo, all-wheel drive weapon built purely to dominate Group A racing. It won 29 straight races in Japanese touring car championships and dominated in Australia so thoroughly that the rules were changed just to get rid of it. That is why it was banned in the US. It was deemed too fast, too advanced, and too difficult to certify for safety and emissions, creating the legend of the ultimate forbidden fruit. The heart of Godzilla was the iconic bulletproof RB26DTT twin-turbo inline 6-cylinder engine, displacing 2.6 liters. This engine produced the famous, officially quoted, 280 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque, a number universally known to be a gentleman's agreement limit, with true output closer to 320 HP. The R32 featured the sophisticated Atisa ETS all-wheel drive system, which sent power to the 1,430-kilogram steel monocoque coupe body. This combination allowed the GTR to launch from 0 to 60 in a brutal 5 seconds, delivering traction and acceleration that embarrassed Ferraris and Porsches. The R32 wasn't just a car, it was a revolution, a symbol of JDM engineering superiority that was so successful, the only way the competition could stop it was to get the government involved. The R32 remains the ultimate expression of the 80s and 90s JDM golden era. And that wraps up our look at 10 JDM cars from the 1980s that became legends, precisely because the US government said you couldn't have them. These cars weren't failures. They were too successful, too exotic, and too fast for the market rules of the time. Which one of these forbidden heroes, Godzilla, the Rotary King, or the twin-turbo Cresta, would you choose to break the 25-year rule for? Drop a comment below and tell us which one you would import. If this ride through forbidden horsepower history got your heart racing, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more legendary cars and technical deep dives.